Rain lashed against the windows, the storm outside mirroring the turmoil within. Inside, Detective John Riley stared at the laptop screen, his face grim, shadows dancing across his features as the screen's glow illuminated the room. A single image flickered. A young woman, her eyes wide with terror, a message scrawled on the wall behind her. "Help me." Her expression was haunting, a silent scream for help that pierced through the digital barrier. The email offered no explanation, just a chilling subject line. Last chance. It was as if the sender knew exactly how to grip Riley's attention, pulling him deeper into the mystery. Riley's gut churned. He recognized the fear in the woman's eyes, the desperation etched on her face. It was a look he had seen too many times before, a look that never ended well. This wasn't a prank. This was real. The urgency in the woman's eyes, the stark message on the wall, it all pointed to a dire situation. The email led him to a labyrinth of encrypted messages and hidden forums, a place he'd only heard whispers of, the dark web. It was a digital underworld, a place where secrets were traded and lives were gambled. The dark web, a hidden part of the internet shrouded in anonymity. It was a place where the rules of the surface web didn't apply, where danger lurked in every corner, a place where the desperate and the dangerous converged. It was a breeding ground for illicit activities, a haven for those who wished to remain unseen. Riley knew he was stepping into a world where the lines between reality and nightmare blurred. Every click, every link could lead him deeper into the abyss. He had to tread carefully. Lives depended on it. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders, knowing that one wrong move could mean the difference between life and death. Riley mapped out his next steps meticulously. He knew that time was of the essence, and every second counted. The woman's life hung in the balance, and he was her only hope. He made a call to his trusted colleague, sharing the grim details and seeking assistance. Together, they would navigate this treacherous path, determined to uncover the truth and save the woman from her terrifying fate. As Riley connected the dots, a clearer picture began to emerge. The dark web was just the beginning. The real challenge lay in deciphering the clues and finding the woman before it was too late. With a deep breath, Riley steeled himself for the journey ahead. He was ready to face the unknown, to confront the darkness head-on. The stakes were high, but he was determined to bring light to the shadows and rescue the woman from her nightmare. Word spread quickly through the department. The dark web wasn't a place they ventured into lightly. "This has to be handled with extreme caution, Riley," warned Captain Miller, his voice grave. "We're dealing with the unknown here." Riley nodded, his mind racing. He knew the risks, but he couldn't ignore the plea in the woman's eyes. He began his research, delving into the murky depths of the dark web, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He navigated through layers of encryption, using specialized software to mask his digital footprint. The dark web was a whisper network, a place where secrets were bought and sold like commodities. It was a digital underworld, teeming with hackers, criminals, and those seeking refuge from the prying eyes of the law. And somewhere within its digital labyrinths, a woman was trapped. Days turned into nights, as Riley tirelessly pursued every lead. He learned the language of the dark web, the coded messages, the aliases. He discovered a world where anonymity reigned supreme, where identities were fluid and transactions untraceable. He stumbled upon forums dedicated to the unthinkable, drug trafficking, arms dealing, and worse. The deeper he went, the more disturbing it became. The dark web wasn't just a marketplace. It was a breeding ground for the darkest impulses of humanity. And then, a breakthrough. A username appeared repeatedly in forums related to human trafficking, the Serpent. Could this be the key to finding the missing woman? Riley's pulse quickened. He was getting closer, but he could feel the darkness closing in, threatening to consume him. Riley managed to establish contact with the Serpent, his heart pounding with each encrypted message. He posed as a buyer, careful not to arouse suspicion. He requested information about the woman in the photograph, offering a hefty sum in cryptocurrency. Days later, a reply arrived. The message was chillingly brief. "She belongs to me now. Forget her." Riley stared at the message, his blood turning to ice. The woman was alive, but her captor was clearly dangerous. Someone who operated with impunity in the shadows of the dark web. Despair threatened to engulf him, but Riley refused to give up. He had to find a way to save her. He knew the clock was ticking. He had to act fast, but one wrong move could cost the woman her life. The stakes had never been higher. Driven by a mix of desperation and determination, Riley decided to take a perilous gamble. He would use himself as bait, He posted a message on the same forum, offering a reward for information about the serpent. It was a risky move, one that could expose him to the very predator he was hunting. The response was immediate. Messages flooded in, some curious, some threatening. Riley sifted through them, his gut churning with each notification. He was wading deeper into the abyss, the line between hunter and hunted blurring with every passing moment. Then, a message sent chills down his spine. It was from the serpent, and it contained a single image, a photograph of Riley's apartment building, taken just hours ago. The hunter had become the hunted. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through Riley's resolve. He was dealing with someone who was always one step ahead, someone who moved like a phantom in the digital shadows. He had underestimated his adversary, and now his own life hung in the balance. He knew he couldn't do this alone. He reached out to Captain Miller, his voice strained as he explained the situation. Miller, his face etched with concern, immediately dispatched a team to Riley's apartment. They had to act fast before it was too late. The dark web, once a distant threat, had breached the barriers of the real world. It was a stark reminder that the monsters lurking in the digital shadows were all too real, their reach extending far beyond the confines of the internet. As the police swarmed his apartment building, the tension in the air was palpable. The flashing lights painted the night in hues of red and blue, a stark contrast to the darkness that had enveloped the city. The officers moved with purpose, their faces set in grim determination as they entered the building, ready to face whatever awaited them inside. Riley continued his online pursuit, his fingers flying across the keyboard with a sense of urgency. Each keystroke was a lifeline, a desperate attempt to keep the situation under control. The dim light from the screen cast shadows on his face, highlighting the intensity of his focus. He had to keep the serpent distracted, buy time for the police to close in. Every second counted, and Riley knew that one wrong move could spell disaster. His mind raced as he crafted each message, carefully choosing his words to keep the criminal engaged. He engaged in a tense exchange, trading messages, each one a dangerous game of cat and mouse. The stakes were higher than ever, and the pressure was mounting. Riley could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on him, but he couldn't afford to falter. And then, a glimmer of hope emerged from the darkness. It was a moment of clarity, a beacon of light in the midst of chaos. Riley's heart skipped a beat as he realized that this could be the breakthrough they needed. A new message arrived, this one from an anonymous sender. The notification blinked on the screen, a small but significant sign that someone out there was trying to help. Riley's eyes scanned the message, his mind racing to process the information. It contained an address, a location where the woman was being held captive. The words seemed to jump off the screen, filling Riley with a renewed sense of purpose. This was the lead they had been waiting for, the key to saving her. Could this be the break he'd been waiting for? Was it a trap? Doubt gnawed at him, but he couldn't ignore the possibility that this was their chance. Riley's instincts screamed at him to be cautious, but he knew he had no choice. He had to act. Riley's instincts screamed at him to be cautious, but he knew he had no choice. He had to act. The weight of the decision pressed heavily on him, but there was no time to hesitate. He picked up the phone, his hand trembling slightly as he dialed Captain Miller's number. He relayed the information to Captain Miller, his voice filled with urgency. "We have an address," he said, his words coming out in a rush. "Get a team there now. And Miller, be careful. This could be a setup." Captain Miller listened intently, his expression serious. He knew the risks, but he also knew that they couldn't afford to miss this opportunity. "Understood," he replied, his voice steady. "We'll proceed with caution. This could be a setup." The team moved out, their faces set with determination. They knew the dangers, but they also knew that they had a job to do. As they approached the building, the tension was palpable. But so was the hope that they were finally closing in on the serpent. The police raided the address, a derelict warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The air hung heavy with the stench of decay and despair. Inside, they found the woman from the photograph, bound and gagged, but alive. But the serpent was nowhere to be found. Riley felt a surge of relief wash over him as he received the news. The woman was safe, but his relief was short-lived. He knew this wasn't over. The mastermind behind this operation was still out there, lurking in the shadows of the dark web. The dark web was a web of deception, a labyrinth of smoke and mirrors. Riley had ventured into its depths and emerged victorious, but he knew the battle was far from over. He had stared into the abyss, and the abyss had stared back. In the aftermath of the rescue, Riley couldn't shake the feeling that he had been manipulated. The events had unfolded too smoothly, too perfectly, as if someone had orchestrated every move. The sense of unease gnawed at him, a constant reminder that he was merely a pawn in a much larger game. The anonymous tip, the seemingly effortless rescue, it all felt too easy. Riley replayed the events in his mind, scrutinizing every detail. Who had sent the tip? Why had the rescue been so seamless? Questions swirled in his mind, each one more troubling than the last. He dug deeper, determined to uncover the truth. Hours turned into days as he pored over data, cross-referencing information and following leads. His eyes grew weary, but his resolve only strengthened. He knew that the answers he sought were buried deep within the shadows, and what he discovered sent chills down his spine. The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, revealing a sinister picture. The address, the tip-off, it had all been orchestrated by the Serpent, a name that sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened individuals. The Serpent was no ordinary adversary. He was a master manipulator, a shadowy figure who thrived in the darkness. The address, the tip-off, it was all part of his grand design. He had allowed the woman to be rescued, using the situation to solidify his reputation and instill fear. He had allowed the woman to be rescued, using the situation to solidify his reputation and instill fear. The Serpent's reach was vast, his influence undeniable. He was playing a deeper game, one that extended far beyond the confines of the dark web. He was playing a deeper game, one that extended far beyond the confines of the dark web. The dark web wasn't just a marketplace or a hiding place, it was a stage. A stage where the Serpent orchestrated his moves with precision, each action calculated to achieve his ultimate goal. The dark web wasn't just a marketplace or a hiding place, it was a stage. And the Serpent was the puppet master, pulling the strings from the shadows. He thrived in the anonymity, using it to his advantage, manipulating events and people to serve his purpose. And the Serpent was the puppet master, pulling the strings from the shadows. Riley had won this round, but the game was far from over. He knew that the Serpent was always one step ahead, always watching, always waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Riley had won this round, but the game was far from over. He had exposed a small part of a much larger conspiracy, one that reached into the highest levels of power. The realization was both empowering and terrifying. He was now a player in a game that he barely understood. He had exposed a small part of a much larger conspiracy, one that reached into the highest levels of power. The stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. Every move he made from now on would be critical. The Serpent's web was vast, and Riley was now caught in its intricate design, and he was now caught in its web. The game had only just begun, and Riley knew that he had to stay vigilant, stay one step ahead, if he ever hoped to unravel the full extent of the Serpent's machinations. The unseen hand was always there, guiding, manipulating, and Riley was determined to expose it.